Some folks spend their whole lives chasing what money can buy. But Elias Stone once learned the hard way that money cannot fill the empty places inside a man. The richest rancher in Arizona had everything a person could want, except one thing he needed most. He wanted to know if anyone could care about him without knowing who he was. He wanted to be loved without his money standing in the way. So he stripped himself of everything fine and stepped into the world looking like a drifter. Torn boots, ragged shirt, dust on his skin. He walked into a town where no one knew his name. Two women stood outside the general store in silk dresses and parasols. When Elias tipped his hat, they turned away. One of them said loud enough for him to hear that he smelled like he crawled out of a hog pen. Elias did not say a word. He kept walking. He counted their words as he passed, the way a lonely man counts anything to keep himself moving. At the end of the road sat a small, tired building with a crooked sign that read, "Way Station, water 1 cent, rest 5 cents. A woman knelt in the dirt beside dying tomato plants. Her gray hair was pinned back. Her calico dress had been washed so many times the color had nearly faded out of it. She looked up when Elias stopped. "You need something? Water? Got a penny?" "No." She studied him for a long moment, then walked inside without another word. Elias waited, 1 minute, 2. He thought she might not return at all. But then the door creaked open and she came out holding a dented tin cup filled to the brim. "Drink." He drank every drop. It tasted like iron and earth and kindness he had not felt in years. He handed the cup back. She did not invite him inside. She did not tell him to leave either. She just stood there in the doorway as if measuring the weight of his soul. "I can work," Elias said. "Fences, ditches, anything. I do not need money, just a place to sleep and meals." "You dig like a man who has not held a shovel in 15 years, she said. She did not ask why. She just stepped aside. "Supper is in an hour." Inside, the kitchen smelled of wood smoke and warm beans. An oil lamp burned low on the table. Martha set 2 plates down, one for him and one for herself. Elias noticed her portion was small, too small. Maybe a spoonful of beans, 1 wedge of cornbread. His own plate was much fuller. "You are not eating much," he said. "Small stomach." But he had seen her cupboards nearly empty, a jar with crusted molasses, the last of the cornmeal. She was giving him more than she could spare. When he looked down again, she had added another piece of cornbread to his plate without looking up. That simple act hit him harder than any words could. A woman with almost nothing had shared her last bite with a stranger. That night, Elias lay in the barn, staring up at the rafters. The dirt was cold beneath him. Outside, he heard Martha cough, dry, sharp, painful. He remembered the empty medicine bottle on her shelf. She had given every spare coin she had to 3 starving children who came by each week, hiding the little money she had left in their pockets so nobody saw. She was sick, yet she kept giving. Elias turned onto his side and felt the key in his pocket. A small brass key from Santa Fe, the key that opened the water control valve 3 miles north, the valve that could turn Martha's dying land alive again within hours. He closed his hand around it. Why does someone with nothing keep giving everything away? And why did a man with everything feel so empty? The drought grew worse. The well dropped lower. Martha prayed while Elias dug deeper into hard earth until his hands bled. Day after day he worked, the sun burning his back. The soil cracked like broken stone. The shovel bounced like it was hitting iron. Still, he kept digging. One afternoon, Martha was watering what little was left of her garden when 3 children appeared again. Dusty, thin, hungry, Martha fed them the last 3 wedges of cornbread in the house. She watched them eat like a mother watches her own. Then she pressed a small pouch of hidden coins into the oldest boy's hand. "Hide this. Come back next week." They left with crumbs on their faces. Elias hid behind the barn, holding torn pieces of soft leather he had ripped from his expensive boots. Boots that showed the truth of his wealth on the inside. He tore the lining out to make them honest, to make himself honest. Night fell heavy. He lay awake again in the barn. Martha's coughing returned, weaker but more painful, filling the darkness with a sound he could not ignore. Each cough pushed him closer to a decision he had been running from. He could save her land, save her crops, save her life, save her. But if he used that key, she would want to know how the water came. She would discover the truth he had hidden, the fortune he carried, the man he used to be. And he was terrified not of losing his money, but of losing the only person who had looked at him with clear eyes and seen a man instead of a millionaire. Elias closed his hand around the brass key again. Dawn was coming. So was a choice. Elias woke before dawn, long before Martha stepped outside to begin her chores. He moved through the barn in silence, saddling her old mare in the dark. The brass key felt heavy in his pocket, heavier than anything he had ever owned. He did not need a lamp. He had memorized every inch of the barn during the weeks he slept there. When the horse was ready, he led her out into the cool night air. He turned her north. It was a 3-mile ride to the water control station. The land was quiet, silver in the moonlight, broken only by the sound of hoofbeats. Elias had built an empire, signed contracts that moved millions, but nothing he had ever done made his heart pound the way this ride did. When he reached the small wooden shack that covered the water valve, he dismounted and unlocked the heavy padlock. Inside, the air smelled of rust and old earth. His hands found the big iron wheel. He gripped it and turned. The metal groaned. The wheel resisted. Then it gave way. A roar began under his boots. Water surged through the buried pipes, thousands of gallons rushing into the empty irrigation channels that led straight to Martha's dying land. It sounded like a heartbeat waking up, like the earth beginning to breathe again. When the valve was wide open, Elias closed the lock, mounted the mare, and rode home through the fading night. He reached the barn just as the first light brushed the sky. He lay down on the straw and pretended to sleep. Minutes later, Martha stepped outside. She paused. Elias heard it too, the sound of water, real water flowing through dirt that had been dry for months. Martha ran toward the ditch. When Elias walked out of the barn, rubbing his eyes like a man just waking, he saw her kneeling beside the flowing channel. Clear, cold water slid through her hands, through her fingers, down her arms. "Eli," she breathed, "look at this." He kept his voice steady. Maybe the spring broke loose. Hard to say. She stared at him longer than usual, her gray eyes studying his face, searching for something. Then she turned back to the water, tears slipping into the stream. The garden came alive. By noon, she and Elias were moving through rows that had been dead just days before. He lifted stones. She shaped new channels with her hands. The earth drank greedily. The squash leaves unfurled. Even a few tomatoes tried again. That afternoon, Elias found fresh clothes waiting for him in the barn, washed, folded, still warm from the sun. Beside them lay a handkerchief, carefully sewn with a faded blue letter M in the corner, a quiet thank you. Days passed, then weeks. The water kept flowing. The garden grew stronger. The air smelled of wet soil and hope. Then one hot morning the sound of a horse approached. Elias lifted his head from the ditch he was digging. A well-dressed rider slowed in front of the property. His boots were polished, his shirt crisp, the horse healthy and strong. Martha walked out onto the porch. "Help you?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," the man said. "Name's Tom Hadley. I manage the Stone Ranch. I am looking for Mr. Elias Stone. His lawyers say he is traveling through this region. I hoped he might have stopped here." Elias's stomach clenched. He kept his back turned, shovel in hand. "Son," Martha repeated. "What does he look like?" "That is the thing. I have never seen him. Worked for him 3 years, but everything goes through the lawyers. Private man. Strange way to run a ranch, but he pays on time." Martha glanced at Elias. "Eli," she called softly. "You know anyone named Stone?" He turned slowly. Hadley's eyes passed over him without interest. "Just a muddy drifter, nothing more." "No, ma'am," Elias said. "Ma'am," Elias is. "Never heard of him." Hadley nodded. "We also had trouble with the canal. Someone opened the main valve without permission. Water is flowing east. If you hear anything, send word." Martha promised she would. Hadley rode away. The moment he disappeared around the bend, Martha walked straight to Elias. Not fast, not angry, but with purpose. She stopped in front of him. "Eli," she said quietly. "Or should I say Elias?" The shovel slipped from his hands. She looked at his boots. Red clay was dried into the seams. Red clay that did not exist anywhere near her land except near the water station. "I saw that mud yesterday," she said. "When you came back before dawn, you think I would not notice?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "You are Stone," she said. "All this time, the money, the land, the power. You came here pretending to be poor. It was not like that." "Then what was it?" she demanded. "Was I some kind of test, a game? Did you go back to your lawyers laughing about the widow who fed you her last piece of cornbread?" "No," Elias whispered. "I never laughed." "Good," she said, her voice breaking, "because none of this is funny." She stepped back. "You lied to me," she said. "Every day you made me trust you while hiding the thing that mattered most." "Martha, I wanted to know if someone could care about me, not the money." "Me?" "Well," she said, "now you know." He reached for her, but she turned away. "Leave," she said. "Just leave." She walked into the house. The door closed. The latch clicked. Elias stood alone in the yard where everything he had built had just come crashing down. He walked to the barn. The tin cup sat where he had left it, the one she had trusted him with, the one she would never hand him again. That night he did not sleep. He stayed in the dark, holding the cup, holding his mother's old ring. The only thing he owned that money had never touched. By morning, he still had no answer to the question burning in his chest. Could a lie told with a broken heart ever be forgiven? Morning light slipped through the cracks of the barn walls, soft and pale, touching Elias's face like a reminder that nothing stops for a man's heartbreak. He had not slept. He had spent the night staring at the tin cup in his hands, turning it over again and again, trying to feel the weight of what he had done. She told him to leave. He was not ready to do that. Elias walked out into the cool morning air. The garden glowed with new life. Water still flowed in the ditches he had dug. The beans had grown tall, the squash vines spread wide. Everything he had worked for was right there in front of him, yet all of it felt empty without Martha beside him. He could ride away, back to Santa Fe, back to the empty house with echoing rooms, but his feet carried him toward the shovel instead. He picked it up and began to dig. He dug because he did not know what else to do. The sun rose higher, burning into his shoulders. Sweat dripped down his back. His hands cracked open again, old blisters tearing. His legs ached, his breath came hard. Still, he kept digging. He did not know if it mattered. He only knew he had to finish the ditch he started. Hours passed. When the kitchen door finally opened, Elias froze. Martha stepped onto the porch, her shoulders slumped, her face tired. She looked at him just for a moment, then walked toward him with slow steps like she had not decided what she would say until the words reached her mouth. "I told you to leave," she said. "I know." "Then why are you still here?" Elias set the shovel down and wiped the dirt from his face. "Because leaving would be easy. Staying is hard. Staying means facing what I did." She crossed her arms. "You lied to me." "I did," he said, "and I cannot make that lie disappear, but everything I did with my hands, everything I built here, that was real. The water, the garden, the work. That was me, not my money." She looked past him at the ditch he had widened. Water flowed smoothly into the new channel, soaking the dry earth. "You could hire 100 men to do this," she said. "I did not want 100 men," he said quietly. "I wanted to be someone who deserved to work beside you." She looked at him for a long time. Then, without another word, she turned and went back into the house. Elias did not follow. He picked the shovel back up and kept working. By sunset, the ditch was finished. His whole body shook with exhaustion. His hands were raw, but the garden now had water reaching every corner. The kitchen door opened again. Martha walked toward him, something small in her hands. Elias recognized it the moment he saw it. It was the dented tin cup. She stopped in front of him. "Take it," she said. He reached out slowly. "Martha, this cup," she said, her voice softer now, "held Jacob's first wages." He said, "A man's character is shown in what he does when nobody is watching." She stepped closer. "You worked today knowing I wanted you gone." That tells me something." Elias looked down at the cup, trembling in his hands. "I am not asking you to forgive me. I am asking for the chance to earn it." Martha did not answer. Instead, she leaned down, dipped the cup into the fresh-flowing ditch, and lifted it back up. Water shimmered in the fading light. She handed it to him. "Drink." He drank. The water tasted cold and honest. When he lowered the cup, Martha was watching him with a tired but gentle look. "Keep it tonight," she said. "See if Jacob was right." Then she turned and walked back to the house. That night, Elias sat outside the barn, staring at the cup glowing in the moonlight. In his pocket, his mother's copper ring pressed against his leg. The only thing he had ever owned that money could not buy. A month passed, then another. Elias stayed. He fixed fences, cut wood, rebuilt the chicken coop, worked from dawn to dusk. Martha still carried hurt in her eyes, but the sharpness softened day by day. She set 2 plates at supper every night. She left clean clothes on his straw bed. She let silence between them grow peaceful again. Then one evening Elias asked her to walk with him. They climbed the hill behind the house just as the sun dipped behind the mountains. The land below glowed gold, the garden thrived, water shimmered through the channels he dug. "It is beautiful," Martha whispered. "Yes," Elias said, but he was looking at her. He reached into his pocket, his fingers closed around the tin cup. Inside it lay his mother's ring. "You gave me something once," he said, "something that meant everything to you. Now I am giving you the only thing I have that money never touched." He held out the cup. Martha's breath caught when she saw the ring inside. "My mother wore it her whole life," Elias said. "She said love was not about gold. It was about choosing someone every day, even on the hard days." Martha lifted the ring out and turned it in the fading light. Her hands trembled. "I am not asking you as Elias Stone," he said. "I am asking as the man who worked in your fields, who shared your table, who found something here he never found anywhere else." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "You know how old I am," she said. "I do not care. You know I am sick. I do not care about that either." She did not speak for a long time. The wind pushed a strand of gray hair across her cheek. Then she slipped the ring onto her finger. "Wait here," she said softly. She walked down the hill and returned with a clay jug. She poured water into the tin cup, drank from it, then handed it to Elias. "Now drink," she said. "If we share the same cup, we share the same life." He drank until the cup was empty. Martha took his hand, their fingers locked together like they had belonged that way for years. The stars began to glow overhead. Coyotes called in the distance. The land settled into quiet. "Come on," Martha said. "Let us go home." Together they walked down the hill toward the little house with the sagging porch and the warm light waiting inside. The tin cup hung from Martha's fingers, swinging softly with each step. A small, worn thing worth everything now that it held both of their stories inside.